Yep, I see recording in the upper left.
I'm Michelle Halperin, Elmira College class of 91, and also an Elmira City School District teacher. I wanted to share with everyone one of my favorite stories that was first introduced to me by my high school English teacher, a book by the name of Many Moons by James Thurber. And I wanted to invite some very special folks that are good friends of mine and also you'll recognize from Elmira College. So thank you everybody for joining me again. And please enjoy the story, Many Moons by James Thurber.
Once upon a time, in a kingdom by the sea, there lived a little princess named Lenore. She was 10 years old, going on 11.
One day, Lenore fell ill of a surfeit of raspberry tarts and took to her bed. The royal physician came to see her, and he felt her pulse and made her stick out her tongue. The royal physician was worried, so he sent for the king, Lenore's father, and the king came to see her.
I will get you anything your heart desires. Is there anything your heart desires?
Yes,
She said.
I want the moon. If I can have the moon, I will be well again.
Now the king had a great many wise men who always got for him anything that he wanted. So he told his daughter that she could have the moon. Then he went into the throne room and pulled the long bell cord, 3 long pulls and a short pull. And presently the Lord High Chamberlain came into the room.
The Lord High Chamberlain was a large, fat man who wore thick glasses, which made his eyes seem twice as big as they really were. This made the Lord High Chamberlain seem twice as wise as he really was.
I need you to get the moon,
Said the king.
The Princess Lenore wants the moon. If she can have the moon, she will be well again.
The moon?
Exclaimed the Lord High Chamberlain, his eyes widening. This made him see 4 times as wide as he really was.
Yes, the moon.
Said the king.
M-O-O-N, moon. Get it tonight, tomorrow at the latest.
The Lord High Chamberlain wiped his forehead with a handkerchief, then blew his nose loudly.
Excuse me. I have got a great many things for you in my time, Your Majesty.
He said.
It just happens that I have with me a list of things I have got for you in my time.
He pulled a long scroll of parchment out of his pocket.
Let me see now.
He glanced at the list, frowning.
I have got ivory, apes and peacocks, rubies, opals and emeralds, black orchids, pink elephants and blue poodles, gold bugs, scarabs and flies in amber, hummingbirds' tongues, angels' feathers, and unicorn horns, giants, midgets and mermaids, frankincense and mirth, troubadours, minstrels, and dancing women, a pound of butter, 2 dozen eggs, and a sack of sugar. Sorry, my wife wrote that in there.
I don't remember any blue poodles,
Said the king.
It says blue poodles right here on the list, and they are checked off with a little check mark. So there must have been blue poodles. You just forgot.
Never mind the blue poodles.
Said the king.
What I want now is the moon.
I have sent as far as Samarkand and Araby and Zanzibar to get things for you, Your Majesty.
Said the Lord High Chamberlain.
But the moon is out of the question. It is 35,000 miles away and is bigger than the room the princess lies in. Furthermore, it is made of molten copper. I cannot get the moon for you. Blue poodles, yes. The moon, no.
The king flew into a rage and told the Lord High Chamberlain to leave the room and to send the royal wizard into the throne room.
The royal wizard was a little thin man with a long face. He wore a red high-peaked cap covered in stars and a long blue robe covered in golden owls. His face grew very pale when the king told him that he wanted the moon for his little daughter.
And that he expected the royal wizard to get it.
I have worked a great deal of magic for you in my time, Your Majesty.
Said the royal wizard.
As a matter of fact, I just happen to have in my pocket a list of all the wizardries I have performed for you.
And he drew a long paper from a deep pocket of his robe.
It begins, Dear Royal Wizard, I am returning herewith the so-called Philosopher's Stone, which you claimed. No, that isn't it.
The royal wizard brought a long scroll of parchment from another pocket out of his robe.
Here it is.
He said.
Now, let's see. I have squeezed blood out of turnips for you, and turnips out of blood. I have produced silk hats out of rabbits, and rabbits out of silk hats. I have conjured up flowers, tambourines, and doves out of nowhere, and nowhere out of flowers, tambourines, and doves. I have brought you divining rods, magic wands, and crystal spheres in which to behold the future. I have compounded philter, unguents, and potions to cure heartbreak, surfeit, and ringing in the ears. I have made you my own special mixture of wolfbane, nightshade, and eagle's tears to ward off witches, demons, and things that go bump in the night. I have given you 7 league boots, the golden touch, and a cloak of invisibility.
It didn't work.
Said the king.
Cloak of invisibility. Didn't work.
Yes, it did.
Said the royal wizard.
No, it didn't.
Said the king.
I kept bumping into things, same as ever.
The cloak is supposed to make you invisible.
Said the royal wizard.
It is not supposed to keep you from bumping into things.
All I know is that I kept bumping into things.
The royal wizard looked again at his list.
I got you horns from Elfland, sand from the Sandman, and gold from the rainbow. Also a spool of thread, a paper of needles, a lump of beeswax. Oh, sorry, those are things my wife wrote down for me to get her.
What I want you to do now is to get me the moon. The Princess Lenore wants the moon, and when she gets it, she will be well again.
Nobody can get the moon.
Said the royal wizard.
It is 150,000 miles away, and it is made of green cheese, and it is twice as big as this palace.
The king flew into another rage and sent the royal wizard back to his cave. Then he rang a gong and summoned the royal mathematician.
The royal mathematician was a bald-headed, nearsighted man with a skull cap on his head and a pencil behind each ear. He wore a black suit with numbers on it.
Now, I don't want to hear a long list of all the things that you figured out for me since 1907.
The king said to him.
Said to him.
I want you to figure out right now how to get the moon for the Princess Lenore. When she gets the moon, she will be well again.
I am glad you mentioned all the things I have figured out for you since 1907.
Said the royal mathematician.
It so happens I have a list of them with me.
He pulled a long scroll of parchment out of his pocket and looked at it.
Now let me see. I have figured out for you the distance between the horns of a dilemma, night and day, and A and Z. I have computed how far is up and how long it takes to get away, and what becomes of gone. I have discovered the length of the sea serpent, the price of the priceless, and the square of the hippopotamus. I know where you are when you're at 6s and 7s, how much is you have to make an R, and how many birds you can catch with all the salt in the ocean. 187,796,132, if it would interest you to know.
There aren't that many birds.
I didn't say there were. I said if there were.
I don't want to hear about 700 million imaginary birds.
Said the king.
I want you to get the moon for the Princess Lenore.
The moon is 300,000 miles away. It is round and flat like a coin, only it is made of asbestos, and it is half the size of this kingdom. Furthermore, it is pasted on the sky. Nobody can get the moon.
The king flew into a still greater rage and sent the royal mathematician away. Then he rang for the court jester.
The jester came bounding into the throne room in his motley and his cap and his bells, and he sat at the foot of the throne.
What can I do for you, Your Majesty?
Asked the court jester.
Nobody can do anything for me.
The king said mournfully.
The Princess Lenore wants the moon, and she cannot be well till she gets it. But nobody can get it for her. Every time I ask somebody for the moon, it gets larger and farther away. There's nothing you can do for me except play your lute. Something sad.
How big do they say the moon is, and how far away?
asked the court jester.
Well, the Lord High Chamberlain says it is 35,000 miles away and bigger than the Princess Lenore's room. The royal wizard says it is 150,000 miles away and twice as big as this palace. The royal mathematician says it is 300,000 miles away and half the size of the kingdom.
The court jester strummed on his lute for a little while.
Well, you can't always get what you want. But if you try sometimes, you'll get the moon. They're all wise men, so they must all be right.
Said the jester.
And if they are all right, then the moon must be just as large and as far away as each person thinks it is. The thing to do is to find out how big the Princess Lenore thinks it is and how far away.
I never thought of that.
I will go and ask her, Your Majesty.
And the jester crept quietly into the little girl's room. The Princess Lenore was awake, and she was very glad to see the court jester, but her face was very pale, and her voice very weak.
Have you brought the moon to me?
He asked.
Not yet,
Said the court jester.
but I will get it for you right away. How big do you think it is?
It is just a little smaller than my thumbnail.
She said.
For when I hold my thumbnail up to the moon, it just covers it.
And how far away is it?
It is not as high as the big tree outside my window, for sometimes it gets caught in the top branches.
Ah, it will be very easy for me to get the moon for you.
He said.
I will climb the tree tonight, and when it gets caught in the top branches, I will bring it to you.
Then he thought of something else.
What is the moon made of, Princess?
Oh,
She said.
it's made of gold. Of course, silly.
The court jester left the Princess Lenore's room and went to see the royal goldsmith. He had the royal goldsmith make a tiny, round, golden moon, just a little smaller than the thumbnail of the Princess Lenore. Then he had him string it on a golden chain so that the princess could wear it around her neck. "What is this thing that I have made?"
Asked the royal goldsmith.
You have made the moon.
Said the jester.
That is the moon.
"But the moon is 500,000 miles away, and it is made of bronze, and it is round like a marble."
That's what you think.
Said the jester
Said
as
the
he ran
jester,
away with the
and he
moon.
went away with the moon.
The court jester took the moon to the Princess Lenore, and she was overjoyed. The next day she was well again and could go out into the gardens to play.
But the king's worries were not yet over. He knew that the moon would shine in the sky again that night, and he did not want the Princess Lenore to see it. If she did, she would know that the moon she wore on a chain around her neck was not the real moon.
So the king sent for the Lord High Chamberlain and said,
We must keep the Princess Lenore from seeing the moon when it shines in the sky tonight. Think of something.
The Lord High Chamberlain tapped his forehead with his fingers thoughtfully, and he said,
I know just the thing. We can make some dark glasses for the Princess Lenore. When we make them so dark, she will not be able to see anything at all through them. Then she will not be able to see the moon when it shines in the sky.
This made the king very angry, so he shook his head from side to side.
If she wore dark glasses, she would bump into things, and then she would be ill again.
So he sent the Lord High Chamberlain away and called the royal wizard.
We must hide the moon so that the Princess Lenore will not see it when it shines in the sky tonight. How are we going to do that?
The royal wizard stood on his hands, and then he stood on his head, and then he stood on his feet again.
I know what we can do. We can stretch some black velvet curtains on poles. The curtains will cover all the palace gardens like a circus tent, and the Princess Lenore will not be able to see through them, so she will not see the moon in the sky.
The king became so angry at this that he waved his arms around.
Black velvet curtains would keep out the air. the Princess Lenore would not be able to breathe, and she would be ill again.
So the royal wizard was sent away, and the royal mathematician was summoned.
We must do something so that the Princess Lenore will not see the moon when it shines in the sky tonight. If you know so much, figure out a way to do that.
The royal mathematician walked around in a circle, and then he walked around in a square, and then he stood still.
I have it. We can set off fireworks in the gardens every night. We will make a lot of silver fountains and golden cascades, and when they go off, they will fill the sky with so many sparks that it will be as light as day, and the Princess Lenore will not be able to see the moon.
The king flew into such a rage that he began jumping up and down.
Fireworks would keep the Princess Lenore awake. She would not get any sleep at all, and she would be ill again.
So the king sent the royal mathematician away. When he looked up again, it was dark outside, and he saw the bright brim of the moon just peeping over the horizon. He jumped up with fright and rang for the court jester.
The court jester came bounding into the room and sat at the foot of the throne.
What can I do for you, Your Majesty?
Oh, nobody can do anything for me,
said the king mournfully.
The moon is coming up again. It will shine into the Princess Lenore's bedroom, and she will know it is still in the sky, and she doesn't wear it on a golden chain around her neck. Play me something on your lute, something sad, for when the princess sees the moon, she will be ill again.
The court jester strummed on his lute.
Dun 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 dun. What do your wise men say?
They can think of no way to hide the moon that will not make the Princess Lenore ill.
The court jester played another song very softly.
You saw me standing alone. Your wise men know everything. And if they cannot hide the moon, then it cannot be hidden.
The king put his head in his hands and sighed.
Suddenly he jumped up from his throne and pointed to the windows.
Look, the moon is already shining into the Princess Lenore's bedroom. Who can explain how the moon can be shining in the sky when it is hanging on a golden chain around her neck?
The court jester stopped playing on his lute.
Who could explain how to get the moon when your wise men said that it was too large and too far away? It was the Princess Lenore. Therefore, the Princess Lenore is wiser than your wise men and knows more about the moon than they do. I will ask her.
And before the king could stop him, the court jester slipped quietly out of the throne room and up the wide marble staircase to the Princess Lenore's bedroom.
The princess was lying in bed, but she was wide awake, and she was looking out the window at the moon shining in the sky. Shining in her hand was the moon that the court jester had got for her.
He looked very sad, and there seemed to be tears in his eyes.
Tell me, Princess Lenore,
He said mournfully.
how can the moon be shining in the sky when it is hanging on a golden chain around your neck?
The princess looked at him and laughed.
That's easy, silly. When I lose a tooth, the new one grows in its place, doesn't it?
Of course. And when a unicorn loses his horn in the forest, a new one grows in the middle of his forehead.
That's right,
said the princess.
And when the royal gardener cut the flowers in the garden, other flowers come to take their place.
I should have thought of that,
said the jester.
For it is the same way with the daylight.
And it is the same way with the moon. I guess it's the same way with everything.
Her voice became very low and faded away.
And the court jester saw that she was asleep. Gently, he tucked the covers around the sleeping princess.
But before he left the room, he went over to the window and winked at the moon, for it seemed to the court jester that the moon had winked at him. Thank you, everybody. This is wonderful. And thank you for the reading challenge. We've accepted it. Deb Owens, Dr. Owens, thank you so much. Let's see what the rest of you can do, Elmira. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.